Sewing for our body type doesn't have to be hard. Sometimes we just need tools to help us achieve our goals. So here's exactly how I make the dress form pads to fit a larger bust. You can head on over to my website. I'll have it linked below to get the pattern. I'm printing at home, so I'm going to use the PDF version, making sure I have actual size selected in my printer settings. Once printed, I'm going to take my awl and ruler to score the edges of each paper. This will allow me to fold the bleed underneath and line it up with the next page. I'm going to continue this process, scoring, folding, taping until the entire pattern is put together. Once the pattern is assembled, you can decide which size bust pad you want to make. There's 3 sizes available. Today I'm going to make a medium, so I'm cutting on the blue line. Make sure you cut slits for your notches so that you can mark them later. And lastly, poke a hole for the apex. This will help you sew darts later. Next, lay out your fabric, smoothing out any big wrinkles. Place your patterns in line with the grain line, and then take an invisible ink pen and trace your pattern, being sure to transfer those notches. Next, you'll want to cut out your fabric using your sharpest shears to cut very precisely between the darts. The pattern has a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so be sure to snip your notches very carefully. Next, mark your apex with the invisible ink. This will indicate the right side for the top pattern piece. Then you'll want to figure out the right side for the bottom piece and mark it as right side. Next, sew the bottom piece dart at 1/4 inch seam allowance. I use a contrasting thread for the sake of this video, but if you're making this at home, use something that matches your fabric so it blends in better. Moving on to the top pattern piece, I'm going to sew the darts. Matching up the dart legs, placing it under the presser foot, and sewing at 1/4 inch. The exact same as the bottom piece, except for when you get to the end of the dart, you'll want to stop. And instead of going straight, you'll want to extend the dart leg so that it's closer to the apex, giving it a little curved shape. This will help you round out the bust and make it less boxy. Continue this for all 4 darts. Next, take 1/4 inch thick elastic and cut 7 3/4 inch. Secure it at the first dart, last dart, and center notch. You'll want to change the setting of your sewing machine to a zigzag stitch before sewing it all together. Be sure to stretch the elastic as you go. This will give you a nice even gather. The next step is to layer your pieces right sides together, placing pins at the notches on the center front. This indicates where to start sewing and also where to stop. Remember, leave this gap open so that we can flip it inside out later. Sew around the perimeter at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Be sure to pivot on the machine where needed so that you get those sharp corners. The next step will be to flip inside out. For the sharp corners, make sure you snip the points to make it less bulky. I use an awl to push the fabric out. Just be careful not to overdo it and rip the fabric. Next, take it over to your iron and give it a nice little press. I'm using Poly-fil to stuff the bust pad. I recommend pulling the fiber fill apart before stuffing the pad so that it has a more even consistency. I've indicated in this pattern, size medium here specifically, it can add between 2 to 3 inches to the overall bust. However, you can pack as much or as little filler as you desire. It's all dependent on you. But here I'm using the iron again with steam to mold the shape to my liking before I take it back to my sewing machine and top stitch. But once you have done that, voila, you have your very own dress form bust pad.